Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to connect to the Azure SQL database using the Java application. So in this project, we have the Azure SQL database with us, and then we have a Java project with us. And this particular video is a part of a series called as Software Engineering Bootcamp. So this whole project, how to get created and all those things are already mentioned in the playlist. But here I'll just focus on how to connect to the database using the Java application, and we already have a Azure SQL database where we have created bunch of tables. How to create Azure SQL database or how to create tables I have covered in the previous video, you can check out. So here we have a database where you can do select from where, etc. So for example, in this particular video, we'll do some entry in this dbo.users table. So that's the intent, that we can query this particular table and get the data. So let's quickly go to the Java application and see and observe the changes. So the first thing is you go to the pom.xml and you add these two dependencies. The dependency number one is com.microsoft.sql server, and here you add this dependency. You can find this particular dependency in the public doc as well. So this is the first one, and the second one is this in-memory database. Now why exactly it is needed? It is needed because the unit test need to run with the in-memory database. So it's needed only for the unit test, not needed in the regular flow, but I have added it because I have some unit tests and I need it to be part of the build. So these are the two things first you add. The second thing is in your application.properties file. So if you are working on a Spring Boot application, you will already have application.properties file. So in the application.properties file, you add something like spring.datasource.url equal to, you put the whole URL of the database so that you can connect to it. How to find the URL is that you go to the database in Azure SQL database on the Azure portal. You go here, and here we'll have something called as connection string. You click here and then you go to the JDBC section and then you copy the URL. The password is not mentioned here, but password is something which we have to replace. So you copy this thing, come back to your code and then put the password here. Now you could put the password here in the code, but generally putting the password in the code is not a good practice. So what you do this dollar and then you put some variable name. Now what will happen is that in the environment variable, wherever you run, in the environment variable, you need to pass the db_URL. So that's what you need to do. So here we have $db_URL, and whenever I run the application, I need to set the db_URL properly. I need to do this modify run configuration. I need to come here, and here I need to give the URL. So that's the first thing I need to do. And then in the Azure portal also, I need to set up the db_URL. How to set up the db_URL is something you need to go to your service. So let's go there and set up the db_URL there. So for that, we'll come to our backend application. The backend application is named as, I think, e-commerce backend. Let's see the application name. So e-commerce backend is my application here. And in the application, we'll go to this environment variable section. And in the environment variable section, I have added something called a db_URL, and I have set up the value. You can add any key and value, and that value will be accessible whenever you launch the service. Likewise, you can put connection string, and the connection string will also be available as a environment variable. So you could add either of the two places, and those things will be accessible in the code as well. So you add in the app service here in the application which is there in the Azure, and otherwise on the local you can just put it here. Now this is done, and then in the application.properties, you just need to have a db_URL. Likewise, in the test application.properties, you need to add the in-memory database. Why it is needed? Because if you don't put it, the test won't run. Basically, whenever you set up a Spring Boot application, this particular test runs, context loads. So this will try to connect to the local database and it will not be able to, and it will fail. So you need to add this to make it work on the local, the unit test to work on local. Now this is the regular one. Now, how do you connect to the database? The first thing you do is that you create a class called as user entity. This class corresponds to the table in the database. So you can create a class called as user or user entity, anything, it doesn't matter, you name it anything. And then the column names here, for example, ID, external ID, email, is verified, all these are the columns, right? So for all these columns you create a variable name, ID, external ID, email, and the name need not be exactly the same as the names here, but there has to be one-on-one mapping. That is ID, external ID, email, is verified, name, picture URL, all those things are here as well. So you just create a class with these things, and then you just add getters and setters to get and set the value. So you create these private variables. It doesn't really matter if it's private or public, but the general guideline is to have a private variable. Why exactly, we can cover it in the low level design sometime later or in some other video, but you can just have a private one here, and these are just getters and setters. Then what you do is that you create a user DAO or any class you want to. So here we are creating a class called as user DAO. Now this particular class will be responsible to connect to the database and get the values. Okay, so here whenever you create a class to connect to the database, you put @repository, so that Spring will come to know that this particular class is responsible for connecting to database. Here this is the thing which is important. You add @AutoWired JDBC template. Now when you add that, Spring will come to know that to load this variable, it will take the configuration from here, and in turn it will take the configuration from the environment variable. And then here, whenever you run command, for example, jdbc template.query, so it will actually make the call to the database. So here you don't have to give any password or anything. So for example, I created a class upsert, basically update or insert, and I'm passing bunch of values which I need to insert to the database. And here I'm making some call, for example, get user by ID. So here I'm writing the query jdbc template.query, and this is just a simple syntax how you write things in the when connecting to the database. So jdbc template.query, you put the query and then you get the result from the database. This is a general syntax, nothing special here, and then you can return the response. So that's the first thing I do, try to get the user by email ID, and the query is simple, select from where email ID equal to something, and if that value is not present, then I save and then get the ID. So this is also the syntactical part, jdbc template.query, and then I just run the insert query. These question mark can be replaced with the values present here. So this is how you insert the value to the database, and then you return the user entity or any object whichever is there. And then here you see it's just the new object getting created. So that's it. So that's what we do here. And then in the other classes, I'm just doing @AutoWired to load that particular class. Here I'm just returning that particular object here. Nothing special. I'm just calling the user DAO here. And then in my controller, I am calling that method. So you can ignore how I am calling the method, but in the larger context, the thing is that I am able to insert the values. So this is how it is set up, and then this is the class where the values are being set up. Now I'll run thing on local and show you. So you can run things on local, and what will happen is that the value will actually be inserted into the database. So you see the service is launching on the local. Now we can go to our browser. So let's go to the browser and launch localhost 8080, and then I'll do sign in with Google. So I'm doing sign in with Google here, you see, and my values would have been inserted to the data. So now since my value was already there in the database earlier as well, so this value was already there, so nothing special. So this will again give me the same thing. Let's log in using some other account and see how things work. So I'll stop my service and rerun it so that I can get a new connection, or I need to log in again. So for that I have just relaunched the server, and then once this server relaunches, I log in using some other account. So here let me do this, and then I'll use some other account, I think quite old account of mine. Let me see if I remember the password. Alright, after some effort I was able to log in using my old Gmail account. So you see I have been able to log in using my old Gmail account. I'll go back to my database again and then I'll query again. And you see the new entry has been created. So how it will help is that whenever a new person logs in to my website, I'll be able to see their information in my database. That's as simple as that. So I have external ID, which is the Google's ID, and then I have email, verified, name, locale. So these are the information which I'm getting. So these are the values which I'm getting and inserting into the database. And then what I'll do is that I'll commit my code here to Git, and the moment I commit the code to the Git, it will be deployed. And how the deployment works I have already discussed in the other videos. So I'll commit this code and then I'll share the GitHub link to the repo as well, so that you can check out in detail. But yeah, that's it from my side. I hope this video was helpful. Till the next time, bye.